everyone, my name is Gabby, and today I'm going to be bringing you the first of a three-part video in which I discuss my experience rereading the Hunger Games books and rewatching the movies in preparation for the release of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I cannot believe that after almost 5 years, we are finally getting a new addition to the Hunger Games universe. I never thought that it would have been possible, and now not only are we getting a book, but we are getting a movie adaptation directed by Francis Lawrence and produced by Nina Jacobson. I mean, oh my god. We could not be more blessed as a fandom. This has been like the one thing that has just been bringing me so much joy, knowing that the release is getting closer and closer and closer, because I just know Suzanne Collins is going to do a phenomenal job with this prequel, and I was just so grateful that I was given a reason to reread the books and rewatch the movies, because I've changed so much as a reader since the first time that I consumed the story around 11, 12 years old, and this is the first YA series I've ever read. It was the first book to movie adaptation that I ever really fell in love with, and this world just means so much to me. It's the reason why I started my YouTube channel. Some of my first videos were talking about Mockingjay Part 2 and the wrapping up of this franchise, and have so much respect and awe for everyone who has brought this world to life and made it what it is. I had so much fun reading the books and rewatching the movies, and I think I took so much more away from this rewatch than I ever did the previous times that I consumed the story, and I think there's so many little things that I noticed that I didn't think I would have noticed the first few times that I read, because I was focused more on the character development and the personal characters' journeys than the bigger picture. I just am so pumped to finally have a more professional sit-down video where I discuss these books and movies, because I've never had a chance to do that on my channel. So I just want to dive right on into it. If you for some reason haven't read the Hunger Games books and movies, there will be spoilers in these videos, so go and do that, but I don't think that's really a necessary spoiler warning that I need to do, because I think most of us have read this series and most of us are pumped for the prequel, so I'm just gonna dive right on in. I don't think we give Gary Ross enough credit as a director. I think he did such a good job with this movie adaptation of the book, and I think he set a lot of really important precedents that Francis Lawrence only continued down the line, and I have a lot of respect for him for that. For one of the things that I did in addition to rereading the book and rewatching the movie was watching the bonus feature package that was attached to each of the films. It's about like 2.5 hours long that goes through the entire process from pre-production to post-production to reflections afterwards of the entire process of putting the movie together. And it's so interesting to see that as someone who like loves bonus features and all that behind the scenes type stuff, and I think it just gives you so much more of an appreciation for what it takes to put these films together. And I've always loved bonus features like that, but I think in the time since I've watched those bonus features, I really have more of a deeper understanding of what it takes to put those films together and why certain creative decisions are made, because I've taken some film classes and television classes where you have to make those choices and have to analyze why those choices are made. It's completely changed the way I look at movies and film, and so rewatching that and hearing Gary Ross talk about the process of putting this film together was really special to me, because I knew that he cared about the story and what it took to bring it to life on the big screen. And it's almost exactly like the book, word for word, but it also does a really good job of taking a first-person story and turning it into a third-person narrative, so you get a lot of these additional scenes with Seneca Crane and President Snow and Seneca and Haymitch, in which you get to see the game makers being involved in bringing this game to life and reacting to the choices that Katniss makes in the arena. And I think that dynamic is really powerful in a movie and just really allows you to see the full picture in a way that you're not able to in the books. So I think one of the things that's really surprising about the Hunger Games books to me is how little world building there is in these books and in the movie as well, because essentially the world building for both the book and the movie is just a few short paragraphs of like, this is the world, it exists. The Hunger Games movie does it with some text that opens up on the screen, and that's all the world building that you have before you're just shot right into the story. And that's sort of the same thing with the books, and I think ultimately like what I took away from that I didn't take away from before is the fact that we need so little information to surrender our disbelief that this world could exist before we just dive into the story and follow Katniss and Peeta on their own journeys and really believe that this is something that they're going going through and that this is a real thing that could happen, which says a lot about our real world and the fact that we could see this as a plausible future for ourselves. And I think it says a lot about Suzanne Collins as an author that she's able to create this world with so little buildup. And I have an immense respect for her for that. She's just such a brilliant writer and creates so many powerful moments in these stories, not only in terms of character development, but in terms of plot as well. And it's done so sparsely, but still packs such a punch, and I just love her for that. The Hunger Games books are actually quite short, and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is going to be like 200 extra pages, and it's making me very nervous why all of that extra content is there, but I'm excited about it. So the cast for these movies is of course fantastic and really bring these characters to life in ways that I would have never thought was possible. And so a dumb thing that I for some reason forgot about in the time since I've read these books was that Elizabeth Banks improvised the line, "That is mahogany," because for some reason I thought that line was in the books. It's not. Then when I watched it in the movie, I felt a lot more fulfilled hearing it because Elizabeth Banks just does such a good job as Effie Trinket, from the hair and the makeup done by V. Neal to the costuming. Just like everything about Effie Trinket is fantastic, and her character is so beautifully brought to life in the films, and Elizabeth Banks took so much care to make sure that she was really playing Effie as she should and just had a real understanding for who her character was. And I love Effie's character development in these films, and the fact that she gets to become more of a role in the films later on. I think that was such a smart choice, and I love her. I think she's great. And Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss is just, there's nobody else that could have played her. She was phenomenal, and there's a moment that's not in the books, but I think, you know, you kind of get the overall impression that's in the movie when Katniss shoots the bow and arrow inside of the apple in the pig's mouth, and she does that because the game makers aren't paying attention to her, and she says a line in the books essentially like, "I only shot the apple because I wanted them to pay attention to me, and if I wanted them dead, they would be." And I thought that line was really profound, and I didn't really notice it in the first few times that I read the book because I was focused more on the quotable passages and, you know, the bigger overarching things that were going on in the story rather than like specific lines and details. And I really love that because I think it conveys so much about Katniss as a character in terms of the fact that she knows how to get exactly what she wants in a given moment, and she's very precise about her actions and what she does for a given reason. So she shot that apple in the pig's mouth to get the game makers' attention because they were very rudely ignoring her when they at least owe her their time to pay attention so they can give her some score so that they can bet on whether she's gonna live or die or not. Like, the whole thing is so cruel and sadistic, and I think it's the first moment that Katniss really notices that. It's like the beginning of that spark of rebellion that you start to see that she's not gonna play the game that the Capitol wants her to and just do what's asked of her, that she is going to go down fighting even if she doesn't know it or not. And I love that impulsiveness about her, and I think it's what makes her such a great character, and you really get to see her at her best in that moment. You want to know who's also another really great character in the Hunger Games franchise? Peeta. I don't think that it's a surprise that I love Peeta Mellark, but I think what was really a surprise to me is that I had reached the peak of YA male protagonist at the first YA series I've ever read. Rereading the series was so emotional for me in terms of the journey that Peeta goes through as a character, because I knew I loved Peeta, and I knew I was like 1000% Team Peeta, and I did not understand Team Gale fans at all. Like, I don't buy it, why that could be something that you could see as happening. Like, I just feel like it is just a like House of Cards tower. Like, it will crumble in on itself, and it takes very little friction to be able to collapse that whole thing. Like, there's no merit to it. There's no world in which Katniss and Gale ever end up together. So I just don't understand anyone who ships them. But that aside, I think Peeta is also just a superior character. And I think this reread and rewatching the films was really what made that like so apparent and obvious to me. One of the things that I noticed is just how self-aware Peeta is. And the thing about Katniss as a character, quick segue, is that it takes her a while to figure out things that other characters are light years ahead of her from, but the minute that she figures it out, she sees it in stark clarity. A really great example of this is when Katniss and Peeta are up on the roof the night before the games, and Peeta tells Katniss, "I don't want to be another piece in their games, I want to die as myself." And Katniss has absolutely no understanding of what he's talking about because her concern is, I need to stay alive for Prim and my mother because they need me, and and nothing else matters, and she does not see the bigger picture. But Peeta does, and he very much is aware of how the Capitol is pitting the districts against each other and how there's just so much manipulation that's going on there, and how he doesn't want to die being turned into one of their pawns, into one of their weapons, and being seen as turning on these other people and savagely killing them and doing what they want and giving them entertainment. But he obviously then does make the concession that he would kill other tributes if he had to, because, you know, he's really given no other choice, but he doesn't want that to change who he is. And I love that about him and his character, and everything about him is just so good and pure. From giving Katniss the bread when she and her family were starving, to saying that he was in love with her during the tribute interviews so that she can make her more desirable, to when he warns Katniss about the careers during the Tracker Jacker attack. Everything he does is to keep Katniss alive because he's in love with her and because he cares about her. Like, I cannot think of a single thing that he does wrong, a single thing that is just bad about him. There's nothing unlikable about him. I love him so much, and Joss Hutcherson does such a good job of bringing his character to life. He's just the best. I love Peeta. He's great. So if we're talking about characters in the series, we also have to talk about Rue. There's this really great Tumblr post that went around several years ago that talked about Rue being the Mockingjay and how she was omnipresent in this series all throughout it, even after her death, and how her death is really what sparks the rebellion and is sort of the inciting incident, even if the berries sort of serve as the more physical representation for the beginning of the rebellion. Rue's death is really like the underlying inciting incident of it. And this whole text post just does such a good job of describing that, and I'm gonna leave it linked down below if you want to give it a read because it's so powerful. I think after reading that and like looking back on that, it made Rue's death for me so emotional. It's Katniss's realization of, I understand what Peeta was talking about now, about not wanting to be a piece in their games, and so she does what no other tribute has done before and honors a fallen tribute and gives Rue a funeral and cries for her death. And then you see another district give a gift to a tribute that's not from their own district, which is unprecedented. And from there, you see Thresh spare Katniss and do something that's a small act of rebellion. And so it's these tiny little things that are being done that defies the Capitol and ultimately says, we're not going to play by your rules and we're not going to see each other as enemy. And it's so powerful. And obviously, like, the thing that like really like solidifies it is the idea that Rue's 4-note whistle is what's attached to this entire franchise and entire series. It's her Mockingjay whistle, and that she is the Mockingjay. She is really the one who starts all of this, and I think that's so beautiful and so profound. It makes her such an interesting character, despite the fact that she has very little page and screen time. And Amanda Steinberg just does such a wonderful job of bringing her character to life, and I just love Rue to pieces, and I think I had so much more of an appreciation for her character and the role that she plays in this series. So we gotta talk about the berries. I find this moment to be so powerful and such a great way to wrap up this first book and the movie as well, because it seems like just a very impulsive decision on Katniss's part, and I don't think she really recognizes what the ramifications of her decision are going to be. Initially in the games, there's the announcement that comes that two victors from the same district can both be crowned winners if they're both still alive by the end of the game. And immediately, Katniss then goes and seeks out Peeta, tries to help save his life and get the medicine for him, and the two of them survive. They make it to the end, and then obviously the announcement comes that they're rescinding that offer and that Katniss and Peeta have to kill each other. One has to kill the other, and that there can only be one victor. And obviously, you know that's not gonna happen because Peeta's definitely not killing Katniss, and Katniss does not want to kill Peeta because she feels like she owes Peeta, and that's the last thing that she's gonna do. So they both pull out the berries, and it's sort of unclear as to whether Katniss did it truly because she loved Peeta, because obviously we know that she tries to convince Snow of that later and he doesn't buy it, and neither do the other districts, but she also sort of does it out of rebellion too, as a way to defy the Capitol and say that in order for you to have a games, you need to have a victor, and I'm not going to give you that. If you're going to decide that you want to rescind the rules, if you're going to decide you want to manipulate me just because you want chaos and bloodshed and you want entertainment because you thrive off of seeing our death and take amusement in it. It's just such a powerful moment, and every time I read it, I just get chills, and it's so well executed in the movie, and I love the fact that it's expanded upon even more with Seneca Crane's death, and you see him locked in the room with the berries, because you don't really find out how Seneca Crane dies, you just find out that he was killed. But I think that's such a great way visually of showing the audience members the implications of Katniss's decision, that she ultimately stuck it to the Capitol, and now there are people that are having to pay for her actions. And the little conversations between Snow and Seneca Crane about how you have to contain Katniss, how you cannot let this spark turn into rebellion, you have to stop her and you have to put her down before she becomes a threat. And obviously Seneca Crane doesn't do that, and so now he has to die the way that Katniss should have died. Like, it's so brilliant, and I think Gary Ross did such a good job with that scene, and it's such a powerful end to this film, and I just love him for that and think he did such a phenomenal job bringing that to life. So I think that's about it for this first part. It's so hard to dive in and discuss these books and these movies because there's so much in them that it's hard to dissect everything all at once, but I think I got all of my main points across. I will be bringing you part 2 and 3 very soon. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time in a new one. Goodbye!